Most people don't realize they are slowly disappearing, not physically, but internally, piece by piece, day by day. They trade curiosity for routine, passion for predictability, courage for comfort, and they call it being realistic. But realism without purpose is just resignation in disguise. You wake up one morning and realize you no longer ask yourself what you want. You ask yourself what is acceptable, what is safe, what won't upset anyone. And that's when life quietly starts passing you by. There was a time when you felt alive, a time when ideas excited you, when your future felt open instead of heavy. That version of you didn't vanish. It was silenced. Buried under expectations, disappointments, and the pressure to fit into a world that rewards conformity more than authenticity. And the tragedy is not that life became hard. The tragedy is that you stopped believing you were allowed to want more. You don't drift into a meaningless life overnight. It happens slowly. You postpone dreams because you're tired. You skip effort because you're busy. You ignore your inner voice because it's inconvenient. And one day you look around and realize you've been living someone else's definition of success, someone else's timeline, someone else's priorities, and deep down you feel the quiet ache of knowing you betrayed yourself without even noticing when it happened. This is the moment where most people turn away. They feel the discomfort rising and they escape. They scroll, they eat, they drink, they distract. Because facing the truth requires responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. But here's the truth that changes everything. The pain you avoid today becomes the prison you live in tomorrow. There is no escape from discomfort. There's only the choice of which discomfort you are willing to carry. Discipline hurts, but regret hurts deeper. Growth is uncomfortable, but stagnation suffocates. Effort is exhausting, but wasted potential is unbearable. Life is not asking you to be perfect, it's asking you to be honest. Honest about where you are. Honest about where you're going. Honest about what you're avoiding, because clarity is the beginning of freedom. You don't need confidence to start. Confidence is built through evidence, through keeping promises to yourself when it would be easier to break them, through showing up when no one is watching, through choosing progress over praise. The strongest people are not the loudest. They're the ones who quietly do what needs to be done long after motivation fades. At some point, you must stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I never try?" Because the second question should terrify you more. Failure bruises the ego. Regret scars the soul. Failure ends chapters. Regret haunts entire lifetimes. And the people who live with the least peace are not those who tried and failed, but those who never gave themselves permission to begin. You were never meant to live on autopilot. You were meant to choose. And choice is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. When you choose consciously, you can no longer blame circumstances. You can no longer blame the past. You can no longer blame other people. You stand face to face with your own responsibility. And that's terrifying, but it's also empowering. Because the moment you accept responsibility, you reclaim control. The world will try to convince you that you have time, that you can wait, that later is safer. But time is not guaranteed, and later is a dangerous illusion. Later is where dreams go to die quietly. Later is where potential waits until it's forgotten. Later feels infinite when you're young, but ruthless when you're older. And the scariest realization is not that life is short, but that you live most of it distracted. One day, you will slow down, not because you want to, but because life forces you to. And in that quiet, you won't remember the excuses that once sounded so reasonable. You'll remember the chances you didn't take, the words you didn't say, the courage you postponed. And you'll realize that the moments that mattered most were the ones you avoided because you were afraid of discomfort. This is why this moment matters. Not tomorrow. Not next year. This moment. Because awareness without action becomes self-torture. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can only choose whether to honor it or betray it again. You don't need to change the world. You need to change your standards. You need to stop negotiating with the voice inside you that knows better. You need to stop settling for a life that feels manageable instead of meaningful. The goal is not to impress others. The goal is to respect yourself. There will be days when progress feels invisible. days when effort feels pointless, days when you wonder if any of this is worth it. Those are not signs to stop. Those are signs you are exactly where growth happens. Every breakthrough is preceded by boredom, doubt, and fatigue. Every transformation requires you to walk through a phase where nothing seems to be working. That phase is the filter. It separates those who want comfort from those who want change. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are early in the process of becoming honest with yourself. And honesty is the most powerful turning point there is. Once you stop lying to yourself, everything changes. Your decisions become cleaner. Your energy becomes focused. Your life begins to align. You don't need a dramatic moment to start over. You need a quiet decision. A private commitment. A promise you keep even when no one notices. That's how real change begins. Not with noise, but with resolve. Let this be the moment you stop running. Let this be the moment you stop numbing yourself to the truth. Let this be the moment you decide that your life deserves your full presence. Because one day, this version of you will be gone. And the only question that will matter is whether you use this time to become who you were capable of being. This can change how you live forever, but only if you act. The hardest part about waking up is not realizing what you want, it's realizing how long you've been living without it. There is a quiet grief that comes with that awareness. A grief for the person you could have been already. A grief for the time that slipped away while you were waiting to feel ready. Most people mistake that feeling for sadness, but it's not sadness, it's truth finally catching up. You don't lose your way all at once. You lose it in small compromises. You stop doing what matters just this once. You stay silent when you should speak. You choose easy when hard would have changed you. And none of it feels dangerous in the moment. That's why it works. That's why it's so easy to wake up years later wondering how you got here. The path to regret is paved with comfort, not chaos. There is a voice inside you that has never been confused. It knew when you settled. It knew when you stayed too long. It knew when you lowered your standards to match your circumstances. That voice didn't disappear. You just stopped listening because it asked more of you than you were willing to give at the time. But it never leaves. It waits. And when life slows down, it speaks again. Most people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of discovering that they were capable of more. Because if you truly accept that you could have done more, then you must also accept that staying where you are is a choice. And choice removes excuses. Choice is uncomfortable. Choice demands accountability. That's why distractions are so powerful. They give you something to blame. They keep you busy enough to avoid looking inward. They make time feel full, while life feels empty. You can fill every hour of your day and still feel like you're wasting your life. Because busyness is not purpose. Motion is not direction. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling restless. That restlessness is not a flaw. It's a signal. It's the part of you that refuses to accept a small life. It's the part of you that knows routine is not the same as meaning. Most people try to silence that feeling. They medicate it with entertainment, comfort, and noise. But the ones who change their lives, listen to it. They let it guide them towards something more demanding, more honest, more real. Growth will isolate you before it elevates you. That is a truth very few people prepare for. When you begin to change, not everyone will understand. Some will feel threatened. Some will feel abandoned. Some will try to pull you back into the version of yourself that made them comfortable, not because they're bad people, but because your growth reminds them of what they've avoided. And it's easier to hold someone down than to rise up yourself. You must decide whose voice matters most. The crowd that wants you familiar, or the future that wants you fulfilled. You cannot build an uncommon life with common approval. At some point, you have to disappoint others to avoid disappointing yourself. That decision hurts, but self-betrayal hurts more. There will be moments when you question whether the effort is worth it. Moments when progress is slow and loneliness is loud. Moments when the old life whispers promises of ease and familiarity. That's when discipline becomes more important than belief. Discipline is choosing your future over your feelings. It is doing the right thing, even when your emotions argue otherwise. It is how trust with yourself is built. Trust is everything. When you break promises to yourself, you weaken your identity. You teach your mind that your word doesn't matter. Over time, that erodes confidence, not because you can't do the work, but because you don't trust yourself to follow through. Rebuilding that trust doesn't require dramatic change, it requires consistency. Small actions done honestly, repeatedly, without applause. You don't rise because you feel ready. You rise because you decide to move forward despite uncertainty. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear decide your life. Every meaningful path feels unclear at first. If the road were obvious, everyone would take it. The difficulty is the gatekeeper. You will make mistakes. You will doubt yourself. You will have days where you feel like you're moving backward. That does not mean you're failing.
That means you're in the process. Growth is not linear.
It's messy. It stretches you in ways that feel unfair, but it also reveals strengths you didn't know you had. One day you will realize that the pain you once feared became the proof of your resilience, that the discomfort you avoided was the very thing that would have shaped you sooner. And you'll understand that life was never punishing you. It was preparing you, waiting for you to step up. The real tragedy is not that life is hard. The tragedy is living an entire life without ever meeting your true self, without ever testing your limits, without ever answering the call you felt deep inside. This because deep down, you don't want an easy life, you want a meaningful one. And meaning demands effort. You were not meant to consume your way through life. You were meant to create, to contribute, to leave something better than you found it, not for recognition, but for integrity. To know that your existence mattered because you showed up fully. At the end of your life, you will not measure your days by comfort. You will measure them by honesty, by whether you lived in alignment with what you knew was right, by whether you faced your fears or fed them, by whether you chose growth even when it cost you. This moment right now matters more than you think, not because it's dramatic, but because it's quiet. And quiet moments are where real decisions are made, not decisions announced to the world, but decisions whispered to yourself, decisions that shape the direction of everything that follows. You don't need to rush. You don't need to panic. You need to commit. Commit to becoming someone you respect, without waiting to becoming someone you respect. Commit to doing the work even when no one is watching. Commit to listening to the truth even when it's inconvenient. Life will not slow down to wait for you, but it will respond when you show up with intention. When you stop drifting and start choosing. When you stop numbing and start feeling. When you stop postponing and start acting. This is how everything changes. Not all at once, but permanently, quietly, from the inside out. And if you keep going from here, if you continue choosing awareness over avoidance, effort over excuses, purpose over comfort, there will come a day when you look back and realize this was the moment your life truly began. And before you walk away from this moment, before life pulls you back into noise, routines, and distractions, remember this. Messages like this only matter if they stay with you when motivation fades, when days get heavy, when discipline feels hard, when quitting feels reasonable. That is why this channel exists. Not to entertain you, not to hype you up for a few minutes, but to remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. If this message spoke to you, if it made you pause, reflect, or see yourself more clearly, then don't let this be a one-time moment. Subscribe to this channel. Stay connected to these reminders. Come back when you need strength, clarity, and truth. Because the version of you that keeps going is built through repetition, through returning, through choosing growth again and again. Your journey isn't over. This is only the beginning. And if you're willing to walk it consciously, this channel will walk it with you.